Bob and Signe. How long exactly did it take in terms of days for you to complete the script for Below Zero?
Well, it took I spent 5 days locked in a meat freezer writing the actual script. But the rewrites and all the work that goes into writing a script and getting it to a point where you can produce it does take considerably longer. I don't know how long it actually took me, but it was several drafts. I was probably looking at full time, probably about 3 months of solid writing and rewriting.
When you're making a movie, writing tends to continue all the way through shooting and in the editing room and everything, if you want to think of it that way, because you're always sort of forming and molding the story. I mean, sometimes things weren't working out for budget reasons, or there were scenes with snow in the movie, but Mother Nature didn't cooperate. So writing a script and writing a movie can tend to be two completely different things.
In fact, I that's a good point, because I was writing the script right up until shooting, right up until production. We didn't have snow, so I had to do a complete rewrite on the script to reflect more of a dry, drab, yellow, rotting corpse of an environment that we were filming in, instead of a white, snowy, sterile one, which is what we'd always imagined. So yes, there were definitely some big differences that we had to address because of the realities of production.
How many drafts of your script did you have?
Well, there's a saying about scripts are never written, they're abandoned. And I think we probably got to that point where, I also feel like I had gotten it to a point where it was the best I could do. I worked on the script really hard. And it was a tricky script because, one character in one location with a limited number of other characters to interact with, that is a real challenge to write a script like that and still keep it engaging and exciting and make it something where people still are on the edge of their seats watching. That's such a challenge for a writer, and I love that.
I would say it's difficult to say how many full drafts there were, because sometimes you're rewriting one line or one scene, or something changes and you have to rewrite just 5 minutes of the script. In fact, we're working with our distributors right now, and they're going to require a final version of the script, which reflects the final edited version of the film. So there's one draft even yet to go, even though the movie's finished.
Yeah, and you rewrite the movie in the edit suite anyway. So that job is probably the closest to writing that exists. Every time when you sit down in the edit suite, you assemble the movie, and basically that whole assembly can tell a completely different story depending on how you assemble the pieces. So you really do end up rewriting it constantly, not just through the physical typing in, fade out, and everything that falls in between that, but to the edit suite and everything, and even our print materials.
Bob, what was your role in the film, and what did your job entail?
I'm a producer on the film. Signe and I have been business partners on our screenwriting conference for about 8 years. And I wound up doing a lot of the supervision and on-set sort of production while we were shooting, and then doing the general roles of a producer throughout. Our next film that we're shooting is one that I wrote. Signe and I sort of take turns. I help produce her film, and she helps produce my film.
That works.
Bob's new film, Breakdown Lane, comes out very soon. Why did you change the title?
Well, I love the title I-15, but unfortunately that in other countries around the world, including Canada and Mexico, they don't use that naming convention for roads, for interstate highways. So that title would have been nonsensical to markets anywhere except in the U.S. So I had to change it. It was, most roads have a breakdown lane though, so it'll be more universally recognizable. And if we, whatever country we're in, if they have a different word for the breakdown lane, then it's more easy to translate.
And you were going to call it what? Highway or Dieway or something?
That you should have, man. you should have heard the hours and hours of conversations we've had. Signe and I would be driving from Calgary to Los Angeles, or from Los Angeles to New York, or from Earth to the Moon, and the whole time we're sitting there saying, "How about Zombie Road? How about Resurrection Highway? How about Dieway? How about They Come Back from the Dead and Walk Along the Highway?" Like, we were just brainstorming titles all the live long day.
Bob, how's the progress on the film? How's it going?
Looking good. We're looking to shoot in this spring, April, May. So the wheels are turning, and I'm directing it too. So it's a question of just getting all the ducks in a row. But they're very cooperative ducks.
We actually started production in the fall. We shot for a day, put together enough materials. We're putting together a trailer right now, and it looks great. It looks really good. So we're quite excited to get going on the next one.
Who's going to be in the cast of the new film, Breakdown Lane?
Well, we have Mr. Michael Berryman, who will be playing a cameo role, and so you'll recognize his face from Below Zero and many other films, of course. And Kristen Booth, who also was the star of one of the stars in Below Zero, she will be the star in Breakdown Lane, and she's fabulous. We couldn't ask for a better actress. Just so talented and just a lovely, lovely person to work with. So we're really, really pleased with her, and she's so talented. Just adore her.
When you talk about the role of luck in making a movie, I mean, we had another actress lined up to play Penny and Paige in Below Zero, and she dropped out at the last minute. The deal just sort of fell apart. So we got lucky to find Kristen, and now here she is in the star of our next movie. I mean, she is so talented and so funny and such a great team player that it's, and not to mention sexy and believable that you could kick a whole bunch of zombies right in the butt. She's
wow, it wouldn't be weird or anything at all, I suppose, if you cast someone else in that role instead of Kristen Booth. I mean, it's not like she'd look back on this footage and be a little bit upset by this or anything. That'd never happen. You
talk about the role of luck. I mean, now the luck on one movie has sort of rolled over into the next movie. We're really excited about it.
So how did you come to cast Edward Furlong in this film?
Well, we had a casting director who had connections to him. And, you know, we always tell everyone we run a screenwriting conference in Los Angeles, and it's called the Great American Pitch Fest and Screenwriting Conference. And in that event, we talk about this all the time, about how you have to use the connections you make. And a lot of times you have connections, you don't even realize what connections they have. And by tapping into the connections you have, you can often tap into the extended connections that each of us has. And that's a huge network that a lot of times we don't think we have access to. So we did use some of our own contacts to reach out and make connections that way. And then we also, the casting director was fabulous as far as getting our offer to them and actually enabling us to move forward with him attached. So it really is about using your connections, and if you don't have connections, making them and doing everything you can, just banging on a lot of doors. And Eddie was fabulous. We really had a great experience working with him on this film.
I got some great advice from a friend of Signe's. His name is Fred Keating. He's an actor from up here in Canada. Terrific man and very giving with his time and his experience. And I mentioned to him how, you know, I'm relatively new as a film producer, but I'm a long-time movie fan and movie buff, and how sometimes it's hard to sort of separate those two hats. Like, sometimes you just have to come at a problem as a fan. And he sort of reassured me. He said, never lose that. Like, the love of movies should be driving all of your decisions when you're a producer and a writer and a director, really. And let's face it, I mean, look, I'm 41 years old. Anyone who's my age who says they've never been a fan of Eddie Furlong is flat out lying to you. I mean, Terminator 2 changed the world, and Animal Factory was brilliant, and American History X was brilliant, and the opportunity to work with someone like Eddie, it just really appealed to the fan in me, even more than the producer or the writer. I didn't write this one, but I'm a writer as well. You know, it's being able to work with people who helped you fall in love with movies in the first place is one of the real genuine fringe benefits of this job.
Signe, you said you wrote some of the script before you went into the freezer and some while you were in the freezer. How much did the temperature dropping affect your writing ability?
I did go into the freezer with an outline, but what I'd mainly written was the actual movie story that you see within the film. And the challenge was I couldn't figure out the other part. I couldn't get the writer's story. I didn't even know I had the writer's story at that point. All I knew was I really liked the movie story, and I had a pretty solid feature film in that, but it was short. It was quite a bit too short. And I was trying to find a way to make it into a feature length. So locking myself in the freezer, there were a number of elements that actually influenced the script. For example, when you're in there, like who would have thought this, but there was this rubber stripping on the bottom of the door, and if I pulled it, this freezer was so old and it was kind of falling apart a little bit. There was actually a little bit of a worn spot where I could actually get my fingers out a little bit, not very, very well, but I could get them just a little bit. And I thought, well, what if I could get them out more? And that influenced the scene where Eddie puts his hand under the door and ends up being attacked. Sorry for the spoiler. So that's one of those moments. Or the fact that, you're in this slaughterhouse that is completely abandoned, and you'd think it would be, really, really creepy and full of strange noises. And there were occasional noises, but for the most part, it was very, very peaceful. It was very quiet there. It's an abandoned slaughterhouse in the middle of nowhere. So it was great because you could really concentrate and think about your script and really get into the head of your characters. So those are just a couple of the things that influence the script.
Yeah, when you're in a freezer surrounded by other freezers with dead animals in them, the neighbors don't make any noise at all.
And nobody comes to visit.